Section 4. What are the remedies for the violation of property rights? As noted in Chapter 4, common law approximates a legal system of maximum liberty, which allows owners to do anything with their property that does not interfere with other people's property. When applying this principle, the amount of liberty afforded to owners depends on disentangling one owner's use of property from another's. When uses are separate, the effect of one owner on another occurs through voluntary agreements, such as market exchange. When uses join, one owner affects another involuntarily, as when my smoke blows over your property. In this section, we discuss the special legal and economic problems caused by entangled uses. Section A, externalities and public bads. When people agree to impose costs and benefits on each other, they often make a contract. In contrast, when the utility or production functions of different people are interdependent, they impose benefits or costs on each other regardless of whether they have agreed. Such interdependence is called an externality, because the cost or benefits are conveyed outside of a market. To illustrate the difference, if I buy so many watermelons at my local fruit store that the seller raises the price, my action affects other buyers. But bidding up a price exemplifies the ordinary working of markets, not an externality. In contrast, if my rooster's crowing annoys my neighbors, my actions affects them independent from market transactions. So the noise is an externality. Costs or benefits conveyed outside of the market are not priced. Whenever costs or benefits are not priced, the supplier lacks incentives to supply the efficient quantity. Overcoming this incentive problem requires pricing the externality. When an externality gets priced, its supply is channeled through a market, which is called internalizing the externality. Thus, the solution to interdependent uses of property is to channel them through the market, or to internalize the externality. The efficient solution to the problem of internalization depends on the number of affected people. If interdependence affects a small number of people, the externality is private. For example, the crowing of my rooster affects a few neighbors, so the noise is a private externality. If the interdependence affects a large number of people, the externality is public. For example, the smoke from a factory affects many households, so it is a public externality. Similarly, when one additional car enters a congested freeway, all the other drivers slow down a little. So congestion is a public externality. The private-public distinction in economics rests on a continuum describing the number of people who are affected by someone's actions. As the number of people affected by someone's actions increases. A vague boundary is crossed, separating private from public. In Chapter 4, we explained that one person's consumption of a public good does not diminish the amount available to others, and that excluding some people from enjoying a public good is difficult. Public externalities typically have these characteristics of non-rivalry and non-excludability. For example, when one person breathes dirty air, just as much dirty air remains for others to breathe. And preventing some people in a given air quality region from breathing the air is difficult. Consequently, harmful public externalities are also called public bads. We summarize these points by using some notation. Imagine a small economy with two people, denoted A and B, and three private goods, denoted X sub 1, X sub 2, and X sub 3. Consumption of the first two goods involves no externalities, but consumption of the third good imposes external costs. For example, the first two goods might be apples and pears, and the third good might be cigarettes. We attach a superscript on a good to indicate who consumes. Thus, the utility of person A can be written as a function of the three goods that she consumes. U superscript A equals U superscript A of X sub 1 superscript A, X sub 2 superscript A, and X sub 3 superscript A. Assume that person B consumes the first two goods, but not the third good. That is, person B does not smoke cigarettes. Furthermore, assume that person B dislikes breathing the smoke from person A's cigarettes. Thus, the utility of person B can be written U superscript B equals U superscript B of X sub 1 superscript B, X sub 2 superscript B, X sub 3 superscript A. Note that B's utility will typically increase if she consumes more of X sub 1 and X sub 2, but that her utility will decrease if A consumes more X sub 3. The utility functions of A and B are interdependent because A's consumption of the third good is an argument in B's utility function. In other words, the presence of a variable in B's utility function bearing the superscript A indicates an externality. Let us add additional notation to indicate incomplete markets. Suppose that the three goods, X sub 1, X sub 2, X sub 3, are purchased in a store at prices P sub 1, P sub 2, P sub 3. The price that person A must pay for X sub 3 presumably reflects the cost at which the store purchases the good. This price does not include the cost of the harm that A's consumption of X sub 3 imposes on B. Consequently, there is no price associated with the variable X sub 3 superscript A in B's utility function. In order to attach such a price, persons A and B would have to bargain with each other. Through such bargaining, the externality might be internalized. Our two-person example is a private externality. Alternatively, assume that there are 1, 2, 3, all the way to n people, just like person B. Choose any one of these n people and call this person J. Person J's utility function has the form U superscript J equals U superscript J of x sub 1 superscript J, x sub 2 superscript J, x sub 3 superscript A, for J equals 1, 2, 3, all the way to n. Now, the harmful externality from A's consumption of x sub 3 affects so many people that it is a public bad. The transaction costs of bargaining with n people is presumably prohibitive, so the externality cannot be internalized by a private bargain. Instead, an alternative means of pricing the externality must be found. Question 5.29. Classify the items in the following list as markets, private externalities, or public externalities. A lighthouse warns ships about rocks. B, my building blocks your sunlight. C, you outbid me at the auction. D, bees pollinate your apple trees. E, noise lowers the sale value of my house. Question 5.30. Assume that the third good, x sub 3, represents miles driven in cars by persons by persons 1, 2, 3, all the way through n, and assume that cars are polluting. Rewrite the utility function of person J in the preceding formulation to represent these facts.